Okay, so I'm a bit behind on uploading episodes of First Impressions that I've had recorded for a while. I have 3 on the back burner, but there's one recently released Nintendo Switch game that I actually didn't record an episode of First Impressions for because I just really did not want to buy it because it completely betrayed my expectations for what the next console game in the series should be, and that game is Super Mario Party. Now look, I have experience with every console Mario Party game other than the Orb trilogy 5, 6, and 7, which even those I've at least seen a lot of gameplay of, but the only handheld one I've really dabbled with is DS. None of the 3DS ones are very well regarded, and I have a personal vendetta against Star Rush. I mean, the box art was copy-pasted from a can of fucking Nintendo-themed SpaghettiOs, and you can only play as Toad. And while I'd love to do an episode of 3DS games that I love to hate about any one of the 3, I'd have to actually play them first before I could form a solid opinion. That's a personal rule I have. I will not review a game that I have not played extensively. I tried it once with Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, but that review never got finished, and now that I actually have the game, I have a decently high opinion of it. With this, though, I feel like I need to justify myself for why I outright refuse to spend money on it, because it treats itself more like a handheld Mario Party game than the full-fledged console one that we've all been anticipating. The past few console games haven't been very highly regarded either, mainly due to exchanging the traditional board game for the vehicle, where each player would have to strategically position the next player either away from mini-stars or towards negative mini-stars. Me personally, I never had a problem with the car mechanic, and I found it to be a nice change of pace for once that felt a lot less luck-based than the board game versions, especially the Orb trilogy, where victory essentially boiled down to getting on your knees and praying. Plus, I thought 9 had the best selection of minigames in the series, which ultimately should be more important than how the boards function, but if everyone's opinion of the top 100 was any indication, people care much more about the boards than the minigames. But then there was Mario Party 10, which, to me, even though I actually enjoyed the car mechanic, felt like a watered-down add-on to 9. Much like how some dumbasses think Mario Galaxy 2 is nothing more than Galaxy 1 and then some. But that's legitimately what 10 is. The same as 9, with different minigames, 1 or 2 different side modes, and the removal of story mode, which had been a staple in the series since 3. Honestly, the whole game felt extremely bare bones, not quite to the extent of Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, but pretty close. And considering most people didn't like the car in 9, it was a pretty stupid move to bring it back. So once they revealed Super Mario Party, the first installment in the series on the Nintendo Switch, and also the first console one that's not numbered for some reason, of course people ate it up when they saw that traditional boards were back. It didn't matter that they looked extremely grid-like, or that I can count at least 5 elements that look like they were ripped directly from Mario Party 1. No, it's fine. Everything is great simply because the car is gone. It doesn't matter how long the game is or if the minigames are actually good. There's no car! Actually, I was kind of surprised to see some people sharing my initial reactions to the grid-like boards in the first trailer, but my immediate pessimism towards this game was put at ease during the E3 Treehouse Live showcase, which showed off a board that wasn't in the trailer, where players could move around freely, sort of like in Star Rush, except this time, Toad is the only character you can't play as. That idea had some promise. Every board having a completely different gimmick and playstyle, I'd be much more down for that instead of half-assing the original board game style for every board. Hell, maybe even bring back the car for one board only. Maybe something from Island Tour, I don't know. Honestly, that's the kind of Mario Party game I want to play. One that brings back one board from each previous game alongside a hodgepodge of minigames from all of them. Essentially the top 100, but with boards. After all, that is what people unrealistically expected the top 100 to be, even though it was never advertised to have boards, and honestly the 3DS wouldn't have been able to handle that anyway. But the Switch? The console that gave us The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey? Hell yeah, we could be in store for a massive Mario Party game. The system certainly has the capabilities. So, is that what we got? Well, let's take a look. The game opens up with a cutscene that is strikingly similar to the opening of Mario Party 1. Wait a minute. And then you can select your character before even selecting a board or game mode. Very interesting choice, but I'm not a huge fan of having to go back and talk to Toad every time I want to exchange my or the CPU's character or difficulty, like between boards for example. If you go from one board to the next, all of the characters will be exactly the same unless you go back to the hub world and change them. I like the cast of characters available in this game. You have an even number of good and bad guy characters, including Bowser, who isn't limited to his own mode anymore like he is in 10. He's just a regular, slightly larger character. Diddy Kong, who makes his playable console Mario Party debut in this game, and Pom Pom from the Super Mario 3D games. But not Boom Boom for some reason? Also, Spike got nixed, but you can still see him on certain boards. Sorry, Spike. Speaking of boards, there are only 4. And I don't mean like 4 from the start and then the rest are unlockable. No, I mean 3 from the start and 1 unlockable. That free roaming board I mentioned earlier, yeah, that's actually a separate mode entirely called Partner Party. Both Partner Party and traditional Mario Party have the same boards. The same 4 boards. It's not even like there's 8 in total and 4 are designated to each mode. No, there's only 4. Even Mario Party 10, the former game with the least amount of boards in the series, had 5. And if this game wanted to be so much like Mario Party 1, well, that game had 8 boards. That's right, everything this game does almost completely rips off Mario Party 1. From the basic mechanics of Toads being the hosts who give out stars, hidden blocks coming back, and the complete lack of original board themes, specifically in Whomp's Domino Ruins, where the main gimmick is to pay Whomps to take alternative pathways. Why does Nintendo keep doing this? I've been talking about video game developers being lazy ever since my Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars review, but there's so many clear examples of games nowadays being so starved for original ideas that they rip them from the first games in the series. I mentioned in my Mario Kart 7 review that the starting roster is identical to that of Super Mario Kart. Not inherently a bad thing, but noticeable. Paper Mario Sticker Star utilizes the paper and cardboard mechanics much more than has been done in any other game in the series since Paper Mario 1, and Bowser is once again the main villain. You already know what I think about Yoshi's New Island being a shameless ripoff of Island 1 and not incorporating anything from DS. And in Mario and Luigi Dream Team, they bring back things from Superstar Saga like the character of Popple, the Beanish, the Who people, and then Paper Jam decided to fill in the gaps by having the Koopalings. And oh look, suddenly they have all the resources to remake Superstar Saga. How convenient. Of course, returning to old game elements can prove to work well sometimes, like the open-worldness of Zelda 1 in Breath of the Wild, and the idea of collecting multiple stars in one area from Mario 64 being used for the moons in Odyssey. But the fact they went in this direction for Super Mario Party with its grid-based Mario Party 1 boards, instead of giving us a new, fresh take on the board game style, is just utterly disappointing. Whomp's Domino Ruins is just shitty DK's Jungle Adventure, Mega Fruit Paradise is just shitty Yoshi's Tropical Island, King Bob-omb's Powder Keg Mine is actually surprisingly interesting, essentially being Bob-omb Factory from 9 but without the car, and the unlockable board Kamek's Tantalizing Tower is just Fair Square from 6, but more boring. And if unoriginal concepts weren't bad enough, the boards are insanely small, so the regular dice blocks only go up to 6, like in the car games, but each character also has his or her own special dice block, which changes some of the numbers to be higher, lower, all the same, or to add or subtract coins. I'm not against the concept of these, but some of them are objectively better or worse than others, which results in an extreme imbalance, much like the character-specific blue orbs in Mario Party 7. And the board designs are extremely simplistic, even to the point of the game telling you what certain happening spaces do before you land on them. Because nobody wanted to experiment with a game and find out what each of them did for themselves. The game takes pride in having 80 new minigames, but only around 60 of them are designated to party mode, and the other 20 are spread across the few other modes. Once again, that's not a bad number for a regular Mario Party game, but this is on the Switch, and the last spin-off game had 100 of them, so don't you think that should have been the minimum? And now minigames give 8 coins to the first place winner, 4 to second, and 2 to third, making every game essentially a battle game where it doesn't matter if you win overall. And then actual battle games are replaced with Rumble minigames, which are way too simplistic to be worth gambling everyone's coins on. I do, however, really like some of the minigames here. This is the 4th game in a row to utilize motion controls, and honestly the Joy-Cons were made exactly for stuff like this. And it's easy to see that quite a bit of polish went into this game when you look at these minigames. For one, graphically, the game looks incredible, but there's also smaller stuff like Monty Mole getting stressed out during a whack-a-mole themed minigame, the ability to practice minigames in the demo instead of having to open a separate practice game, players shoving each other out of the way when they pass the same space on a board, and every character having a unique animation for getting pissed off when their teammate refuses to high-five them after a 2v2 minigame. All of these tiny little details are things that I would love to see return in future installments, but the rest of the game seems like such a letdown. Because for every tiny bit of polish they put into the game, there's also some areas where there was a clear lack of polish. For example, in previous board game-based installments, shops would close on the final turn because you could no longer use items on the following turn, but here they remain open, enticing you to waste your coins. And then there are bonus stars, which mostly work how they're intended, except for the ally star and buddy star, which can still end up being selected at the end of the game, even if you were playing on a board that didn't have ally spaces. As for the non-party modes, Soundstage looks fun, but like it could get old very quickly once you've seen all the levels. River Survival looks like the most intuitive minigame mode the series has ever seen. And yes, launch trailer, it is the first 4-player co-op mode in the series, because anyone who actually thought the car had you working together to win is an absolute dumbass. Toad's Rec Room has a solid amount of variety, even if you only have one Switch system, but I love that you have the option to use multiple for some of them. And Challenge Road is the top 100, but worse. Now, I have no quarrels with the online mode, because honestly I was never going to use it anyway since I don't play enough to warrant getting Nintendo's online service, but I can clearly see that mode is lacking. So yeah, Super Mario Party just really does not look appealing to me, which is a damn shame because as I said earlier, the Switch has so much potential for a good Mario Party game, but they treated this one more like a spin-off akin to the 3DS games rather than a console one. And yes, the Switch doubles as a handheld system, but it has proven to be able to handle massive games like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, but developers keep giving us really small games on it like Kirby Star Allies, the 4-hour Sonic Forces, and now this. So I just really hope that Nintendo ultimately looks at this game like one of those handheld spin-offs, as the developers clearly did, and the next game can actually be called Mario Party 11, because this is not Mario Party 11. This is somehow more dry and bare bones than even Mario Party 10. So while I personally have no intention of getting this game for myself, I do hope that the small amount of content it provides can hold people over. At least, until the next party gets started.